Antonio Conte is no longer the Chelsea manager. Obviously, I think everybody saw this coming. The surprise is that it's taken until now, July 12th, with the Chelsea players already in training camp. Conte hung in there. Conte said, if you want to sack me, you need to pay me off. Otherwise, I'm still the Chelsea boss. And so we had this surreal situation of players turning up and being coached by Conte. But then again, it was in his rights to do so. And this is the sort of guy that Conte is. You know, he thinks that if you sign a contract, you sign a contract, and you go out there and you stick with it. It seems remarkable that 2 years ago Conte was was very much the toast of Chelsea. That even last season you heard his name ring out at Stamford Bridge. I think Chelsea fans, while probably understanding why he left, also very much appreciate the work that he did. What was his undoing? I would argue that it's probably the combination of things. One thing, obviously, the transition to playing European football. Remember, in his first season, because he didn't qualify with Mourinho in Mourinho's final season, he had no Champions League football, and that meant that he could work the players harder, more double sessions, more tactical sessions, and obviously they were fresher, and they managed to stay largely injury-free all season long. I think that was absolutely a crucial element. The other issue is there were clearly personality clashes behind the scenes. Mostly it was at club level. Conte felt that by coaching Chelsea, he deserved to get major signings of a certain caliber. Obviously, Chelsea linked with the likes of Alexandro, who never turned up, and a bunch of others, Romelu Lukaku. He felt that Chelsea were ambitious, and so therefore Chelsea needed to go and match the likes of Manchester City and Paris Saint-Germain for spending. That was probably never going to happen, and here becomes a question of whose version you believe. I think there's a learning curve for Conte here as well, which is that, I think if you looked at the situation at Chelsea, you would know that this is a club that doesn't have the sheer volume of fans that a Manchester United has, or Liverpool even. And so to expect Abramovich to go and throw money around without really paying attention to the numbers the way he did in his early years, I think was always going to be unrealistic. I think from Chelsea's perspective, there were several situations that I think really disappointed them in Conte's approach. One, obviously, was the Diego Costa situation where he basically sacked him via text message at the start of the season. Again, whether you thought Diego Costa was right for Chelsea or not, Conte has a right to go and choose the players he wants, but equally he's an asset of the club. And by putting him in that situation where you basically had to sell him, clearly it depressed his transfer price. Although that said, I still think they got a really, really good fee for him from Atletico Madrid. The other one, the situation with David Luiz. David Luiz is a very popular player, very easygoing personality. Him being frozen out behind this sort of mystery injury that he had, I think that was also disappointing to people. All that said, that title remains as a real achievement for Conte. And, of course, they followed up winning the FA Cup in his second season. That's 2 major trophies in 2 years. As for Chelsea, at least now they have some clarity. They've got a bunch of contractual issues to sort out, starting with Eden Hazard, whose contract is winding down. Thibaut Courtois, another guy that they need to lock up. It seems inevitable as we tape this, everything can change in football, that Maurizio Sarri, who they've been talking to for a long time, the former Napoli manager, is going to replace Conte. The question is going to be, does he have the charisma, does he have the nous to get Courtois and Eden Hazard to buy into his project? Change again at Chelsea, and again, big payouts to a departing manager.
Gorilla. Hello there, everyone. Welcome into ESPN FC. Welcome to day one of the 28-year wait for the next England World Cup semi-final. A little bit of a down way to start the show.
A few of us may not be around. I'm just telling you. I'm not looking at you, Steve. I'm not looking at you.
Just day one. As you can imagine, Croatian elation was at an elevated level after the semi-final victory. Not easy to say. It was very much easier for the Croatian papers. They came out with headlines like, "We knocked the English down. Football's not coming home." The celebrations for the nation of just 4 million included the Croatian Parliament, the Croatian Congress, I should say, all getting all dressed up in the right colours the day after, celebrating and looking forward, of course, to Sunday's final against France, who they, of course, met in that 98 semi-final. Some saltiness, though, perhaps, in victory from a couple of Croatian players. Luka Modric saying English journalists, pundits from television, they underestimated us tonight. That was a huge mistake. All these words from them we were reading, and we were saying, OK, today we will see who will be tired. They should be more humble and respect opponents more. Ivan Rakitic weighing in, saying each to their own, but they thought they were already in the final. They can keep doing what they always do. Croatian elation. I'll try saying it again. But were they underestimated, Ali? Did we underestimate Croatia?
Well, we didn't. We just pointed at the facts, and the facts were that they had played 2 back-to-back games, 120 minutes. So logic will tell you that they were some tired legs, and I think that they were some tired legs there. And had Harry Kane scored the opportunity that he had early in the first half, the game would have been 2-0, and I didn't see a way that Croatia would get back into the match. To the credit of Croatia, though, they then controlled the pace of the game. They sped up the possession when they wanted to. They pressed when they wanted to. They slowed it down when they wanted to. It was played at the way that they wanted to be played. And England did a very poor job of maintaining possession of the ball themselves. Whenever they were pressed, they went back to Pickford. Pickford throws it long, and then all of a sudden it's back with Croatia. That allowed Croatia to grow into the game and grow into the match. And once they scored the equalizer, then they thought, well, never mind the tired legs. Never mind all that. We can power through this, and it was all about guts, quality, and the effort of Croatia that was superior to that of England.
What do we make of these comments from Modric?
This sounds to me like a classic coach's trick. You try and listen. If you're the coach of this team, every time you stand up and talk, you have to find something that gets their attention and motivates them. And how much easier is it to turn around to your team and say, right, this team we're playing against, they all think we're not good enough. They all think we're tired. It's an old coach's trick, and it'll work to perfection.
But it's normally the opposition players and the coaches. Bulletin board material, they call it.
Yeah, I would say we didn't underestimate Croatia. We overestimated what England were going to do. You know, and Ali just said it. When they were pressed, they didn't know how to play through the pressure. They couldn't get it into midfield. The midfield players didn't know how to turn with the ball and get it into the front players. And England started playing back and going back to Pickford and then going long. They played so many long balls, but not with quality. When you see Man City pressed higher up the field, they chip balls into the front and they play. England couldn't do it. They went longer. Raheem Sterling couldn't get hold of the ball. Harry Kane couldn't get hold of the ball. So I would say England were poor. Croatia played very well after that first 20 minutes.
It's just surprising to hear professional players come out and say they need extra motivation in a World Cup semi-final case. Isn't that surprising?
I think at any time, it really sounds like Croatia feeling a little bit like there's a chip on their shoulder. And you think of what the EPL has. And the money that the league can generate. And a country like Croatia just doesn't have it. I was talking to a Croatian friend of mine last night, and they're just saying that if we had the resources of England, there would never be this conversation. And I just kind of said, well, maybe you're getting the benefit of players understanding that they don't have those resources at a young age. They're taking that chip on their shoulder, and they're going and creating something for themselves. But you look at this Croatian team. How do you underestimate a team where these players are playing at the top teams in the world? It's not as if they're playing for smaller clubs and they're in smaller leagues.
Why we slightly, or could have underestimated them, is their last 2 games against Denmark and Russia, they didn't control the game as they did against England. They didn't play at the tempo.
They let Russia back in the game.
Are we actually saying that England as a team?
Well, I was going to say, I don't
think England is a team. I think the fans,
the way Gareth Southgate has gone about this, there is no way that this team would have underestimated Croatia. And by the way, do you think for 1 second that the players don't know individually how good the Croatian players are as well? So Maybe it's the journalists, maybe it's the pundits, but there is no way that Gareth Southgate didn't prepare this team for the best that Croatia could throw at them.
I think Luka Modric, I think the bigger picture that he's addressing here is the fact that England came into this tournament as low expectation. Look, let's see what happens. You know, we're feeling good about our team, but this is a young team. This is a young establishment. It's a sort of new way of playing. Let's see how we do. And then as they continue to advance in the tournament, then that quickly became from let's see what happens in the tournament to it's coming home, we're going to win it, that's it, it's us against the world. And when you create that sort of hype and then you don't quite have the players to back it up, then you expose yourself for other players to say, yeah, it's not coming home.
England didn't overestimate them. Even Rakitic saying they already thought they were in the final. I'm not sure how accurate that was. I didn't hear that.
They didn't underestimate them. I think Stevie just said that they practiced for everything. They really went into the game fully prepared. I don't think they went into the game fully prepared. They didn't realise after 20 minutes that when Croatia kept on switching the play and creating 2v1s in the wide area, what they were going to do about that, and it allowed Croatia to run the game. England got their tactics wrong, and they weren't able to change it.
How did they get the tactics wrong?
Because they were,
how did they get to the semi-final of the World Cup? They played the same way from the very first kick of the ball to playing against Croatia. Now, if you're sitting coaching a team, you can either do two things. You can hope while you're still in the game. You can hope that you get back to the best that you've been at the system, or you can totally change it.
But once Croatia started to dominate the game, it was obvious to me watching the game and one or two other people watching the game that the problem was they were switching the play, they were creating 2v1s in the wide area, and England were too narrow in midfield. It meant Dele Alli couldn't get out there. Lingard could, so he had to change the shape. He had to change this. It wasn't dead easy. That's what Croatia was.
He sat watching the telly going, oh, I would do this and that. The point is, England were in control for half an hour, and then they started losing control. So as a coach, you've got to make a decision.
And he had to make a decision, and he didn't.
Right. No, he did. He made a decision not to change the way they were going to play the rest of the game, which we can sit and argue all day whether it was right or wrong, but that's how he comes to the decision he made.
Not just Messrs Modric and Rakitic weighing in. Dejan Lovren also with plenty to say in the aftermath of the win. You'll enjoy this, Stevie. He said, I took Liverpool to the final of the Champions League. Now with my national team, we are in the final. I think people should recognise that I am also one of the best defenders in the world and not just talk nonsense.
Here comes the nonsense.
He took Liverpool to the final of the Champions League.
He's aiming this at you.
He took was he driving the bus from the hotel to the game or something? Listen, let's not kid ourselves. This guy deserves a pat on the back for having confidence in himself. To come out and say that tells you that he thinks he's mustard. And that good on him. I'll tell you what, he's got as big a heart as anybody else. As big a heart. Unfortunately, he's a train wreck at times. The guy makes mistakes from absolutely nowhere. One minute you think everyone's in control, all of a sudden the ball's in the back of the net and he's right bang smack in the middle of it. So I admire his courage, I admire his ability to fancy himself, but he ain't one of the best defenders in the world, that's a certainty.
Are you with Stevie on that assessment case? Lovren gone up in your assessment?
There's definitely been some cases throughout this last season at Liverpool where...
That game against Spurs.
You just sat there and you went, whoa, what are you doing? And we're all entitled to the odd one here or there, but he definitely threw in a few more if he wants to call himself the best defender in the world.
I think he's a decent defender. He's not the world's best defender, as he's talking about, but he's a better defender than I think Stevie thinks he is. It's easy to criticise. Once you see one mistake, and we're talking about the goalkeeper, Karius, as soon as he makes another, he's a terrible goalkeeper. I'm sure he's a decent goalkeeper, but he's made too many mistakes for Liverpool, but he's still a good defender.
He gets away with murder. He's not a good defender. I'll tell you what, when the ball's thrown into the penalty box, he's as good a defender as there is, because there's very few that go and win headers the way he does. But when the ball's on the ground and he's marking somebody and the ball's played to them,
he didn't give Harry Kane much of a look in, did he?
Every now and again, as he said. But what about Sterling? The guy in the semi-final could have had 3 yellows. I mean, some of the challenges were just stupidity.
He played on the borders, on the fringes. He knew what he could get away with.
I think Kylian Mbappe
Good defenders don't play on the borders. They control the situation. He doesn't control what happens when he's involved, when the ball's on the floor.
So you would have him? Is what you're saying. If you're picking a team, you have Day and Lovren.
In this Croatian side.
See, that's the thing.
Means
who's available.
Maybe not.
I'm suggesting that if you think that he's one of the best in the world, then...
No, I didn't say he was one of the best in the world. I
Okay.
said he's a very good defender, but he's not one of the best in the world. Would I pick him in place of the three centre-halves the three centre-halves England had? I'm not sure about as John Stones as a centre-back. I'd have Lovren instead of John Stones. John Stones likes to play out with the ball, but I don't think he knows always how to do it, and I don't think he defends very well. He was at fault for the second goal. I'd have Lovren in there.
So now we know that you hate John Stones.
Yeah, of course.
Well, from salty winners to salty losers, the other side of the semi-final coin, some interesting quotes emanating from the Belgium camp after their defeat to France. Eden Hazard saying, "I prefer to lose with this Belgium than to win with that France."
Okay.
And then goalkeeper Thibaut Courtois weighing in as well, saying France heads a corner, does nothing more than defend. France are just an anti-football team. They defended well with 11 players, 35 metres from their goal, and they've done this the whole tournament. I'd have preferred to lose to Brazil in the quarterfinals. At least that was a team that wanted to play football.
No, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have preferred losing to Brazil. It's nonsense by Thibaut Courtois, and it's nonsense by Eden Hazard as well.
So why are they saying this?
Well, because they lost. Yeah, it's very simple. And the truth of the matter is that Thibaut Courtois actually had to come up with a few saves so that the result wasn't worse than what it really was. France controlled the game even without having the ball. France forced Belgium into areas in which they could get 2 and 3 guys around playmakers like Eden Hazard or Kevin De Bruyne, forced turnovers, and then went on the corner themselves. To me, what France did defensively was a clinic. The 2 center backs were excellent, and N'Golo Kante, who in my opinion has been the best player in the tournament, again was outstanding. They did defending the way it's supposed to be done. Not necessarily parking the bus, just organize defensively, and then when there were opportunities to get forward, you do so, and you do so mindful of the fact that if you expose yourself to counters, Eden Hazard and Kevin De Bruyne can exploit those. They did not allow those opportunities. I thought France was excellent.
Sour grapes? Anything more than that?
Oh my goodness, how's it ever?
Really sour.
Does Courtois forget that for the second part of the season, when Chelsea won the Premier League, that's what they did? They sat tight, but it was okay then? But all of a sudden it's not okay now?
And if a team defends 35 yards from goal, then you need to sling more crosses into the box. You need to play around the sides and then leave Fellaini on for the last 15 minutes when you are getting crosses into the box, because that's how they were going to score. They didn't do enough in the creativity side of the game to break down a side that defended brilliantly.
You'll back up Courtois as a member of the Goalkeepers Union, won't you?
No, I can't on this, simply because I think the point was made. You watched the last 10 minutes when Belgium had to push more numbers forward and they opened up on the counterattack. Courtois had to make 2 or 3 excellent saves to keep it. Otherwise, the game could have been 3-0. And then, it's only 1-0. They only scored on this. No, you actually did your job as a goalkeeper, made some key saves to keep your team in the match, to give them a chance to find an equalizer. It wasn't France just sitting back. They took advantage. They didn't get the goal. So then they were a little bit more cautious.
Were these 2 centre-halves for France, and Titi and Varane, that you weren't very keen on?
I never said that at all.
Yes, you did.
I did not. I absolutely did not.
Couldn't play as a partner.
I told you that before the World Cup started, I had Varane in my expected team of the tournament. What I did say, hold on a second. Exactly. I didn't. I wasn't
badly the other day, did they?
I'll tell you what, Titi, after 2 minutes, he nearly scored an own goal. Because he shinned one.
Yeah. But he did
that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And Varane in the game was magnificent. Titi was not.
Hey, you know
and by the way, it takes 2 to make a partnership.
Hey, you know who he shinned that ball to? Lukaku!
There you go. And by the way, guess what?
Yeah,
he never expected it because he'd already switched off.
I think the Belgian players are just trying to hide their excitement about the prospect of the 3rd place game.
Very much so.
Against England, the game that no one wants to play. And apparently there are official bookmaker odds for this. I'm not quite sure how they come up with these odds. Belgium 4-6 to win the 3rd place game. England at 6-5. Why do they still do this, other than the obvious answer?
Money.
Yeah.
No other reason.
No. I mean, is it good for the players who haven't?
No, absolutely not. I went to the game. I commentated on the game last time between Brazil and the Dutch, and they both put out full teams almost. I think it was only a couple of changes, so they went for it, and it was a decent game. Holland winning by 3-0. But the players beforehand and the coaches were talking about this is the biggest waste of time that any of the players have been experienced.
They don't do it in the Copa America, do they? Or do they? Oh,
yeah,
they do.
Yeah, they do.
All right, I got my facts wrong.
And we lost, yes, against Peru. But to that point, what I would say is that it's such a letdown mentally once you have focused on the idea of having a chance of winning the tournament, and you put so much into the semifinal game, and now that the goal, the objective is not reachable, it is so very difficult from the player's perspective, from the coach's perspective, to find any sort of motivation, to really put out a performance that you can be proud of. The one thing that you can say is, look, maybe the guys that haven't had an opportunity to play, this is their moment. You give it to them and allow them to make a difference for you.
Reflections, Steve, I know you weren't on yesterday's show in the immediate aftermath of England going out. I know you were nervous that they were actually going to win.
I was nervous they were going to win. Listen, I think at the end of the day, England, anybody connected with England should be very happy and really pleased that they got to the semi-final. They got found out. They hadn't been put under any real pressure for any period of time previous to this semi-final. And when they were put under pressure, they buckled. So clearly, they weren't good enough to get to the final. Probably, considering who's been knocked out, they weren't good enough to get to the semis. But they should be proud and happy of what they've done so far.
The last England team to make a semi-final is still remembered 28 years on. Is this team going to be remembered the same way?
Not quite, because they didn't have to play the opposition that that team in 1990 had to play. And the semi-final was against a very, very good West German side at the time. We went on to, or German side that went on to win the title.
Wait a minute, that team had to play Cameroon in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, they also had to play one or two other decent sides. They played Holland in the group stages, so there was games that they might have lost. I would say this England side,
a disjointed Dutch team.
Yeah, I think this England side, on paper, every team they have played in the tournament, apart from the last game, they were expected to win.
Well, you would expect England to beat Cameroon as well in a World Cup quarterfinal.
But not West Germany.
Well, they didn't beat.
And
they didn't beat West Germany.
You wouldn't expect them to beat Holland either.
They didn't beat West Germany.
You wouldn't expect them to beat Holland either.
The disjointed version of Holland,
but
not the Euro.
So you have to say who they are, whether they're disjointed or not.
That team still...
No, I'm just saying, if we're going to throw facts out there, let's throw facts out there.
But that team, case, you know, there's an idolisation that goes on with Paul Gascoigne and Gary Lineker. Do you see it the same way with this team?
I think what comes from this team is you're coming off of not getting out of the group stage in Brazil, not losing to Iceland in the Euros, and just a real down. People just not thinking highly of the national team as a whole. And again, they qualify well, but it's like, oh yeah, we always seem to qualify well and then fall flat. And they came here and they benefited from not the hardest group stage. Yeah. They benefited from losing to Belgium and getting into the easier bracket. But again, they beat the teams that were in front of them. They brought some spirit back to the national team and to the nation. And
I think nearly every player will have enhanced their reputation.
Correct.
Maybe apart from Dele Alli. Every player coming away from this World Cup will say he's a better player now than he was before he came.
I mean, people are talking about Trippier like, sky's the limit. This guy's going to be bought by Barcelona, and he had an excellent tournament.
Well, our colleague Ian Dark in Russia has weighed in with his thoughts on England's World Cup. You can read his column on ESPN FC. England no longer a laughingstock after a stellar World Cup campaign. We'll be with you tomorrow, switching the focus to the final. Frank Leboeuf will join us as well to preview France against Croatia. That'll be on Russia Tonight. Well, it appears that Antonio Conte's reign at Chelsea has come to an end after an increasingly fractious 2 years. Remember, he won the Premier League title the first time of asking, won the FA Cup in his second year. It's been a deteriorating situation, isn't it, at Stamford Bridge for pretty much all of his second year in charge. And Gab, just bizarre the way this has unfolded. Still no official confirmation from Chelsea that he's actually out, but it appears that Maurizio Sarri is on his way. What's your understanding of the whole situation?
Well, you're right, Adrian. The situation is unusual. Obviously, Cesc Fabregas tweeting today, best of luck to his boss, Antonio Conte. A number of, obviously I'm here in Russia, not in London, as you can probably tell, but a number of media outlets in England reporting that he has been sacked after his meeting with the club today, and you can only assume that they've been briefed by Chelsea that this was indeed the case, and that finally it's July 12th. He's no longer the Chelsea manager.
Gab, you're an Italian who lives in West London. Do you like Maurizio Sarri, what he can bring to West London?
Look, first of all, I love his story, right? Because this is a person who never played professionally. This is a person who actually had a real job of the kind you actually have to show up for, who coached literally in the lowest rungs of amateur football on the side, and he did it right up until he was 40. Just kept winning the league every year, different levels, moving up, and then only at 40 did he say, all right, I'm going to give this professional coaching thing a go. And since then, he's been tremendous. Finished second in Serie A 2 of the last 3 years, played some of the best football in Europe with a squad that was gifted, but not as well resourced as the opposition. I think it's obviously a sign, I think, from Chelsea that they want to go in a different direction in terms of the way they want to play. I think the big challenge is going to be managing a much bigger squad than he had at Napoli, where he only used a core of 12, 13 players. And I think he's obviously part of a trend towards perhaps away from a certain type of perhaps a little more defensively organized, more conservative manager to a manager who wants the ball, who believes in creating chances, who believes in creative football. My main concern, though, is we're like a month away from the start of the season. He's not going to have a lot of time to work.
And Gab, as part of the Sarri deal from Napoli, Jorginho is also included in what appears to be a £50 million package. How important could he be to the future of Chelsea?
It's odd too with Jorginho because, of course, it looked as if it had all been sort of signed, sealed, and delivered for him to go to Manchester City. He's certainly going to be important because the way they set up at Napoli, they played a 4-3-3, and he was the guy in the middle who was very much the deep-lying playmaker who dictated play. He was fundamental. I think possibly if Cesc Fabregas were a little older, it's a role that he could have filled at Chelsea, but you can see why he feels more comfortable with a player who's younger and a player who he's worked with the last 3 seasons.
Gab, what about Gonzalo Higuain? Because a lot of people are putting 2 and 2 together and making 4 here. He worked Sarri with Higuain for a season and got a great year out of him. Could those two reunite at Stamford Bridge?
I mean, it's a possibility. I think it doesn't take a genius to figure out Juventus are ready to sell him to get some money back to help finance the Cristiano Ronaldo deal. What I would say about Higuain is obviously he got on great with Sarri in the 1 season together. But I think Sarri's going to keep an open mind. He's certainly a big fan of Alvaro Morata. Obviously not the Morata we saw in the last 6 months at Chelsea. I think Chelsea would love for Morata to fit his system. Personally, I think Morata fits Sarri's style of play actually probably better than what Higuain does. So I don't think it's a done deal. I think if Higuain comes, it'll probably be on Sarri's terms.
Gab, great stuff indeed. Enjoy your last few days in Moscow. Appreciate it as always. Boys, just to finish up on that thought, do you like what you're seeing from Chelsea?
Sarri is a good manager. I think he's done very, very well with Napoli. They've changed their style of play. They play attacking football. I can't quite see Jorginho because he's talking about him being the holding midfield player. They've got the best holding midfield player in the world in Conte. So I'm not quite sure where Jorginho fits in.
The other thing I would say is that nothing happens at Chelsea until they figure out what's going to happen within Hazard. So how do you go about making big moves if you don't know if your most important attacking player, what is his future at Chelsea? And is he going to be a part of that future? Until you sort out Hazard, you can't quite sort out the rest of your group. That's a priority.
If you're a Chelsea fan, are you excited right now, boys?
I think you should be excited, but I don't think you should expect too much too soon. I mean, it's going to take time to change from the way they've been playing under Conte to the way Sarri wants the game to be played.
Right.
Yeah, that's the key. Patience.
Yeah. That's in short supply sometimes in West London, particularly with the owner. Thanks very much to all of you. We will return tomorrow, cast our eyes forward to the World Cup final. Talking of athletes, Oscar wants to know, should Luka Modric win the Ballon d'Or if Croatia win the World Cup?
I think Luka Modric has had a great tournament, no question about it. I'm
also won the Champions League, remember?
It's true. I mean, if he wins, he'd be in the running. But when you see the numbers that Messi and Ronaldo put up every year, it's really hard to argue with what they've done, because you just can't compare it to anything. I mean, it's insane what they do every year.
Someone else has to win it eventually.
I know that, but somebody else has to consistently put up the numbers that those two put up, because it is...
Modric was the best player in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
He's been probably the best midfield player in this tournament, so why not?
Can you win it over 7 games rather than
I think he's
the
had
whole
a
year?
whole good season.
Wait a minute. So you were making an argument for somebody else to win it. Then he says yes, and he's like, well, can he win it over 7 games?
And you're talking about only 7 games. We're talking about the whole season.
Just providing a counterpoint.
To the counterpoint.
Counterpoint. It was a question. It wasn't a point at all. He asked the question.
Yes. Well, should he win it? Do you think he should?
Is that a counterpoint or a question?
Is it enough? I mean, does he actually? Yeah. So they've made the final. If he loses the final,
I think he's had a good season. I would still say that it's difficult to go away from the likes of Lionel Messi and Ronaldo.
Okay.
So probably not. No.
all right.
He may not even win the Golden Ball, by the way,
No.
as a best player in the tournament. He could go to N'Golo Kante, who has been outstanding as well.
That'd be a good shout.
They don't usually give it to a holding midfielder.
Well, I know.
But you're absolutely right. He's been the best player.
Okay, well, there you go. That's all I'm saying.
Not really any standout candidates like
N'Golo
like a
Kante.
James 4 years ago, but not one that jumps off the page.
This is why N'Golo Kante won't win, because that's a perspective of people.
Because he's done a great job defensively. So you don't worry about it. You just want the stars, the goal scorers,
The goal scorers are always going to give.
I'm not arguing. It's been fantastic. It's a great play.
Right. For the rest of the segment, right, you're not allowed to take your hands off the table. Okay?
Has there been too much of that?
No, I'm just saying.
We're gonna keep them glued,
Let's see if you can do it without using your
Keep them
hands.
on or off?
Just keep your hands on the table.
All right.
You can't make any hand
You
gestures.
keep lifting it.
All hands on deck.
Antonio Conte, gone.
We lost.
Gone. I just want to do this when I ask you. I just want to do
Let's
this.
keep your hands on the table.
I just want. It's an automatic thing when I ask you a question. Antonio Conte, Robbo, would you rank him among the top 5 in the world?
Yes, I would for up until this season, but I think there was other factors that caused him a problem. Mainly himself having to go at the ball and the ball not giving him the players that he wanted. I think he fell out with some of the players. Up until this season, he did brilliantly at Juventus, 3 titles on the trot. He did well with a very poor Italian side in the Euros, and he then won the league with Chelsea when they came 10th the year before. So I would put him in the top 5, yes.
Anyone else put him in the top 5?
Yeah.
Right now? Yeah.
I think he's proven that he's the top manager.
Yeah.
We'll see what he does in his next, because whenever you have that first little blip, then what happens? Can you then carry on in your next club and prove that you are in the top 5? We'll see where he ends up and how he does.
Any advance on that, Ali? Top 5?
No, I'm just focused on the hands.
Now I'm firmly
We're all
glued
waiting
to
on
the
your
table.
words, your final words. You have the final say.
Stevie, do Liverpool still need a few more signings in order to challenge for the Premier League and the Champions League again, says
Yes,
Jackie.
as soon as the final whistle went on the Champions League, they needed a goalkeeper and another centre-back. Definitely.
Yeah.
And we still haven't. Nothing's happened.
How have they not signed a goalkeeper yet?
I have no idea.
Harry has made another
Open.
mistake pre-season. You see that?
Well, it's going to be tough for Terry.
Karras has got no chance. As soon as he makes one mistake, the crowd.
He already
goes
made one in pre-season.
Against Tranmere, that's not quite.
Yeah, but it's even happening now in pre-season.
Yeah.
Even in pre-season.
And they don't like Mignolet, the fans don't like Mignolet, the press don't like Mignolet, so they've got to get another goalkeeper. But they've got one of the world's best centre-halves, haven't they, in Lovren?
According to Lovren.
That's all that matters.
According to Lovren. I'll tell you what.
You've got to believe in yourself.
You've got to give him 100% for believing in yourself.
Yeah, and Emre Can is gone. You need another body in the midfield as well.
Naby Keita's coming.
Yeah,
who's
but
a magnificent player.
Yeah, but even when Emre Can was there, they needed another body in the midfield. So I'm only suggesting that this is far from being the full outfit when it comes to Liverpool. I think there are pieces that need to be addressed.
If you were building a team, you could pick one for this fictional team. Antoine Griezmann or Neymar, Pace? Who'd you start with there?
Personally, I think it's probably Neymar. I know the antics in this World Cup have kind of shined a bad light on him, and I think he'll get through that. But I think he's more of a total package than Griezmann. Griezmann as well. I mean, hasn't had a good World Cup after the fiasco of the is he staying, is he going documentary a couple days before he reported to the squad. I don't know if that's weighed on it, but I think Neymar's definitely more of the total player.
Ali, you would clearly pick N'Golo Kante above either of these two. Clearly. If you had to stick to these two,
what's the actual wording of the question?
If you could pick one of these.
Okay, I would say 100% Neymar over Antoine Griezmann, just from base and talent alone. And then, if I were running the team, I would address his behavior issues.
Neymar over Griezmann, okay. You two?
I'm not sure about either of them. I've always said that I would never build a team around Neymar, but I would have to agree with Ali. You'd have to sign him and then say, this is what I expect from you. I don't want any of these antics. This is the way you're going to play for me.
How about?
And he's making 50 times more than the manager, and he says, what are you going to do to me?
In that case, he'd be out straight away.
Hey, that is not even the question. See, that's not even the question.
I invested $200 million on him and $10 million on you.
Therefore, I would have him.
Again, that's not part of the question.
No.
That's not part of the question.
How about before you sign him, you talk to him?
It's the only one.
Because if he tells you,
you're a shrew.
Because if he tells you to shove it before you sign him, then you go for Griezmann.
But it's not like you're
to shove it as well.
I mean, yeah. and he'll do it in a video as well.
Yeah,
so there you go.
Correct.
Just saying.
Every day on ESPN Plus, more of this sort of stuff.